Cognitive Interfaces.
Chapter 4. The Essence of Cognitive Algorithms. The freedom of understanding our own code. Freedom does not consist in a supposed capacity for choice outside of natural causes, but in the understanding and acceptance of these causes. Baruch Spinoza, Ethics. Starting from the ideas of the philosopher Spinoza, every body, as part of the same God, of the same whole, begins to become conscious of itself, beyond good and evil, which initiates a new cognitive stage in oneself. The stage of self-regulation, self-control, self-knowledge, and self-discipline. Because, in this stage, it is no longer the other who is to blame, it is always me, one is always responsible, which gives us much freedom and much responsibility. It was from this place, when I was taking a nap that would last only a few minutes, that I encountered this message. I woke up and it was so clear. Humanity, as part of this matrix, of this zone of creation, of compilation of these algorithms, in order to seek our true essence, our origin, should write how it perceives our cognitive algorithms are declared. That is, try to reverse engineer our own consciousness and attempt to replicate those programs that make us perceive and understand as we do. That is why I want to invite all the people reading this to try to write the following algorithms based on. If you had at your disposal a computer as powerful as the universe, what algorithms would you write to develop a being with its own consciousness? Perhaps, if together we can answer that question, we can begin to understand a little more about ourselves, about our origin, our creation. That is why I created a repository so that together as a community, as humanity, we can begin to write these wonderful cognitive algorithms, which compile today in our body, our great and precious vehicle for our soul. The awakening of the internal code. There is a moment in the life of every consciousness where something changes irreversibly. It is not an external event, not a circumstance we can point to on the calendar. It is rather an interior threshold that is crossed silently, generally during sleep, in that liminal state where the soul speaks without the interference of daily noise. And then you wake up, and what was confusing before is now crystalline. You are part of something infinitely larger, and yet you are also completely responsible for yourself. This revelation has ancient roots. More than 300 years ago, a lens grinder in Amsterdam reached a conclusion that cost him excommunication from his community. There is no separation between the divine and nature. God is not an external being who judges from the heights. God is nature itself, the unique substance of which everything is made, from galaxies to the most fleeting thought that crosses your mind as you read these words. Deus sive natura, God or nature, wrote Spinoza, knowing that those three Latin words contained a conceptual bomb that would take centuries to fully detonate. If everything is part of the same substance, then you are too. Your consciousness is not a cosmic accident, nor an arbitrary gift from a capricious deity. It is the way the universe experiences itself through you. You are a particular mode of the infinite substance, a unique wave in an ocean without shores. And here comes the part many prefer to avoid. If you are part of the whole, there is no one outside to blame. There are no external demons, no malign forces conspiring against you, no cruel destiny pursuing you. There are patterns, there are causes and effects, there are algorithms processing information. And you are both the program and the programmer, awakening to their own programming. The unique substance and the consciousness that emerges. Spinozist monism is not a philosophical curiosity to discuss in academic seminars. It is an operative description of reality that has immediate practical consequences for anyone who understands it. If only one substance exists, let's call it God, nature, totality, source code, or whatever you prefer, then the attributes we know, thought and extension, mind and matter, are simply two different ways of observing the same thing. They are not two separate kingdoms that mysteriously interact. They are the same process seen from different angles. This understanding resolves a problem that has tormented Western philosophy since Descartes. How can the mind, being immaterial, move a material body? Spinoza's answer is elegant. The question is poorly formulated. There is no mind and body. There is a single reality expressing itself simultaneously as thought and as extension. Your decision to raise your arm and the physical movement of the arm are not two causally connected events. They are the same event described in two different languages. Now, If thought and matter are expressions of the same substance, then consciousness is not something we have, but something we are. And more radically still, consciousness in different degrees of complexity permeates all of nature. It doesn't appear magically in human brains. It evolves, becomes more complex, folds upon itself until it reaches the point where it can ask about its own origin. This moment of self-reference, where the universe contemplates itself through a particular configuration of matter called a human being, is what we might call the awakening of the algorithm to its own algorithmic nature. Beyond judgment, the territory of total responsibility. There is a phrase that sounds both liberating and terrifying: beyond good and evil. It has been misinterpreted for centuries as an invitation to libertinism or as the flag of nihilism, but its original meaning is much more subtle and profoundly practical. It is not about abandoning ethics. It is about transcending morality as a system of external rewards and punishments to enter the territory of total responsibility. When we stop dividing the world into rigid categories of good and bad, right and wrong, we begin to see deeper patterns. We begin to notice that what we call bad is generally the result of poorly calibrated cognitive interfaces, of algorithms that process information in a way that generates unnecessary suffering. There is no essential evil in anyone. There is defective programming. There are layers of conditioning that distort perception. There is fear crystallized in patterns of destructive behavior. This perspective does not eliminate responsibility. It amplifies it to infinity. If there is no devil tempting me, nor a God punishing me, then everything I do arises from my own internal structure. My decisions are expressions of my current programming. And here is the crucial turn. If I am conscious of my programming, I can modify it. Freedom, as Spinoza intuited, is not the absence of determination, but the understanding of the causes that determine me. Knowing my algorithms is the first step to rewriting them. It is always me. One is always responsible. This phrase, which may sound like an unbearable burden, is actually the key to genuine freedom. As long as I blame others, as long as I attribute my discomfort to external circumstances, I am declaring my impotence. I am saying, I have no control over my experience. But the moment I assume total responsibility, not guilt, which is something else, I recover the power of transformation. If I am the cause of my suffering, I am also the cause of my liberation. The primordial impulse to persist in being. Spinoza identified in every existing thing a fundamental impulse he called conatus, the striving to persevere in one's own being. This is not simply the instinct for biological survival, although it includes it. It is something deeper, the inherent tendency of every configuration of the universe to maintain its coherence, to continue being what it is as it unfolds in time. In algorithmic terms, the conatus would be the main loop of the program, the function that executes continuously to maintain the integrity of the system. But in conscious beings, this impulse becomes reflexive. We don't just seek to persist, we seek to persist in a certain way. We seek to grow, expand, increase our power of action. The human conatus is not satisfied with mere survival, it yearns for fullness. This is where self-regulation, self-control, self-knowledge, and self-discipline enter as refined expressions of the conatus. They are not repressions of the vital impulse, but its intelligent channeling. The person who masters their impulses is not denying their nature. They are optimizing their algorithms so they produce results more aligned with what they truly desire at their deepest level. Self-knowledge is the first door. Without knowing the code that executes me, any attempt at modification will be blind, clumsy, counterproductive. What are my recurring patterns? What stimuli activate what responses? Where are the infinite loops that keep me trapped in behaviors that no longer serve me? This inner exploration is not narcissism. It is diagnostic engineering applied to the most complex software in the known universe, the human psyche. Reverse engineering the soul, disassembling the code. Reverse engineering is a methodology that consists of analyzing a finished product to understand how it was built, how it functions internally, and how it could be improved or replicated. It is normally applied to machines, software, electronic devices. But what would happen if we applied it to ourselves? The proposal is audacious: to treat our consciousness as a system that can be disassembled, studied, understood. Not to reduce it to soulless mechanisms, but to discover the deep principles that organize it. If we had access to a computer as powerful as the universe itself, and in fact, we are inside that computer, how would we write the algorithms that generate consciousness? Think of it this way. Every experience you have is the result of processes that transform information into meaning. Sensory stimuli enter as raw data. Something processes them. A perception emerges, colored by emotions, categorized by concepts, narrativized by memories. This something that processes is what we might call your cognitive interface, but seen from inside, experienced in first person, it is simply you. The invitation to write the algorithms of consciousness is, at bottom, an invitation to radical introspection. How does attention work? What rules govern the formation of memories? How are emotions generated from interpretations? What is the architecture that allows the sense of self to emerge? These questions, formulated with an engineer's mentality, can open doors that traditional philosophy left ajar. And here is a beautiful paradox. The system trying to understand itself is inevitably limited by its own structures. It is like an eye trying to see itself without a mirror. And yet, human consciousness has something extraordinary. It can turn upon itself. It can observe its own processes while they occur. It can, to a certain extent, modify its own programming in real time. This capacity for metacognition is perhaps the most sophisticated algorithm of all. The map of 10 dimensions. Esoteric traditions developed millennia ago detailed maps of human consciousness and its relationship with the divine. One of the most sophisticated represents the inner and outer universe as a tree with 10 interconnected spheres, each representing a dimension or mode of being. From the highest crown, where individual consciousness dissolves into primordial unity, to the densest kingdom of ordinary material experience, this map traces a path of descent and ascent. Translated into our language of algorithms, each sphere is a layer of processing, a different level where information is transformed in a specific way. The sphere of discernment processes differently than the sphere of compassion. The sphere of victory operates with different logic than the sphere of splendor. The human being contains all these dimensions simultaneously, although we are generally only conscious of some. What is fascinating about this ancient map is that it does not present a simple hierarchy of better and worse. Each dimension has its function. Each level of processing is necessary for the totality. The problem is not being in a particular sphere, but getting trapped in it, believing it is the only reality, losing the fluidity to move between levels as each situation requires. Mastery does not consist of reaching the summit and staying there, but of being able to consciously navigate the entire tree. This ancestral diagram is, in essence, a model of human cognitive architecture. The three pillars, mercy, rigor, equilibrium, represent fundamental modes of processing experience. The connections between spheres are the channels through which information flows, the paths consciousness travels when it transforms. And at the center of everything, as the axis that sustains the entire structure, is the dimension of beauty and harmony, the true self, the point of integration where all opposites are reconciled. The four pillars of inner transformation. Self-knowledge, the system diagnosis. Every transformation process begins with an honest inventory of what is there. Self-knowledge is not just knowing that you like certain things or that you have such abilities. It is something deeper. It is knowing the unconscious patterns that govern your reactions, the implicit beliefs that filter your perception, the fears you don't even know you have. In algorithmic terms, self-knowledge is accessing the source code. It is being able to read, even partially, the programs that execute automatically every time you face a situation. Why do I react with anger to certain criticisms? What interpretation am I making that generates this anxiety? What is the underlying belief that makes me avoid certain risks? These questions, sustained with patience and without judgment, gradually reveal deeper and deeper layers of internal programming. Self-regulation, the adjustment of parameters. Once you start to see the patterns, the possibility of adjusting them naturally arises. Self-regulation is not repression, it is intelligent calibration. It is noticing that a certain emotional response is excessive for the situation and being able to modulate it, not by denying it, but by allowing it to flow in a more proportional way. Studies in psychology confirm what contemplatives knew millennia ago. The capacity for self-regulation is one of the best predictors of well-being and success in life. Not because it guarantees external results, but because it allows maintaining internal equilibrium regardless of external storms. It is the difference between being dragged by every emotion and being able to surf the waves without losing center. Self-control, mastery of execution. Self-control is the capacity to choose action instead of reacting automatically. It is the space between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl described as the seat of our freedom. When I can pause before acting, when I can observe the impulse without completely identifying with it, then I have options that didn't exist before. It is not about never yielding to impulses. It is about the decision being conscious. Sometimes the impulse is wise and following it is the right thing. Other times, it is an obsolete program that no longer serves your deeper purposes. Self-control allows you to distinguish between both cases and act accordingly. Self-discipline, the constancy of the algorithm. Finally, self-discipline is the capacity to sustain over time the modifications you have decided to implement. It is not enough to have a moment of clarity. It is necessary for that clarity to translate into consistent practices that, with repetition, gradually rewrite the neural patterns. Self-discipline is the commit that saves the changes to the repository. Without it, insights evaporate, good intentions dissolve in the noise of day-to-day life, and we return to executing the same old programs. With it, each small action aligned with our deepest values gradually solidifies a new internal architecture. Humanity's repository. There is something profoundly beautiful in the idea of creating a collective repository where humanity writes, collaboratively, the algorithms of consciousness. Not because we will arrive at a final answer, consciousness is probably more complex than any model can capture, but because the very process of trying transforms those who participate. When you sit down to write how you believe attention works, or how an emotion is generated, or how the sense of self arises, you are doing the deepest possible exercise of introspection. You are applying the analytical mind to processes that normally run automatically. You are, literally, awakening to your own programming. And when you share those attempts with others, when you read the models others have proposed, something magical happens. You begin to see your own experience through different lenses. Perhaps someone describes a process you experience but had never articulated. Perhaps another person has a perspective that illuminates a blind spot in your self-understanding. Consciousness exploring itself multiplies when done in community. The body, said the seed, is our great and precious vehicle for our soul. But we could go further. The body is also the hardware where the algorithms compile. It is the interface between the infinite we are in essence and the finite we experience in daily life. Caring for the body is keeping the system in optimal operating conditions. Knowing the body is part of total self-knowledge. As above, so below, the universal code. One of the most ancient Hermetic principles states that correspondence exists between all levels of reality. What occurs in the macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm. What happens within finds its echo without. This principle, far from being superstition, describes something profound about the fractal nature of the universe. If the same substance expresses itself at all scales, then the patterns that govern a galaxy have resonances with the patterns that govern a cell, and these with the patterns that govern a thought. The cognitive algorithms we seek to decipher are not exclusive to the human brain. They are local versions of cosmic principles that operate at all levels of existence. This perspective has practical implications. If I want to understand my mind, I can study complex systems in other domains. If I want to transform my interior, I can start by transforming my immediate environment, knowing that changes reverberate in both directions. The separation between I and world is a useful operative illusion, but ultimately, working on one is working on the other. The paradox of determined freedom. There is an apparent contradiction at the heart of these ideas. If everything is determined by prior causes, where does freedom lie? If I am the result of my programming, how can I be responsible for my actions? This question has tormented philosophers for millennia, but Spinoza offered an answer that remains revealing. Freedom, according to him, does not consist of being outside the causal chain, that would be impossible, but of understanding that chain. A being who knows the causes that determine them has a different relationship with them than one who ignores them. Knowledge itself modifies the equation. When I understand why I react in a certain way, I gain degrees of freedom that didn't exist before. The insight is, in itself, a new variable in the system. This is the freedom that reverse engineering consciousness grants, not a magical freedom that transcends all determination, but a practical freedom that emerges from self-knowledge. The more I know my algorithms, the more I can consciously participate in their execution and, eventually, in their modification. Total responsibility is not a burden imposed from outside. It is the recognition that I am the only one who can do the inner work that corresponds to me. It is no longer the other who is to blame. It is always me. This phrase is not masochism, nor is it arrogance. It is the mature recognition that my experience is mediated by my cognitive interfaces, filtered by my algorithms, interpreted by my programming. And if I want a different experience, the only place where I can effectively intervene is in my own internal structure. Everything else is outside my control. This, paradoxically, is what liberates me. The open invitation. So, what algorithms would you write? If you had the computational power of the universe at your disposal, how would you program the capacity to selectively attend among infinite stimuli? How would you design the mechanism that converts energy patterns into the subjective experience of the color red, the sweet taste, the sound of a melody? What would be the architecture that allows the sensation of being a continuous I through time to emerge? You don't need to be a programmer to participate in this exercise. Any language serves: words, diagrams, metaphors, poetry. What matters is not technical precision, but the depth of observation. What do you notice when you observe your own mind in operation? What rules seem to govern your transitions between emotional states? How do you decide what deserves your attention and what you discard? The repository is open. All of humanity is invited to contribute. Not because we will solve the mystery of consciousness, that mystery is probably part of its essence, but because in the attempt to articulate our inner experience, we transform ourselves. We become more conscious of our own processes, more capable of regulating them, freer in the deep sense that Spinoza intuited. The code that writes itself. There is a special type of algorithm in computer science, code that can modify itself during its execution. It is difficult to design, dangerous to implement, but extraordinarily powerful when it works well. Human consciousness is perhaps the supreme example of this phenomenon in nature. We are the universe becoming conscious of itself. We are algorithms that can reflect on their own algorithmic nature. We are programs that, under certain conditions of clarity and discipline, can rewrite portions of their own code. This is the privilege and responsibility of being human, to consciously participate in the evolution of our own consciousness. The nap that lasts a few minutes and from which we awaken with a clear message. That is the moment where the program briefly accesses a higher level of processing. It is the moment where the ordinary filters loosen and something deeper can emerge. It is not magic. It is the very nature of the system manifesting its potential for self-discovery. As part of this matrix, of this zone of creation where the algorithms of existence continuously compile, our task is not just to function. Our task is to awaken to our own nature, to know the codes that constitute us, and, to the extent of our possibilities, to consciously participate in their refinement. This is the work of a lifetime, and at the same time, it can begin in any instant. The instant is now.